Ramana Maharshi's words are deep and direct. My comments are intended to bring his deep words into your experience. Use YouTube's closed captions to read along. This is the Ramana Maharshi Satsang, a time to listen, reflect, and deeply meditate. Know yourself and be always free and at peace. Welcome. I'm Richard Clarke, hosting this satsang. I'm not a guru or a teacher. Like you, I love this teaching and just want to share it. I'm reviewing and commenting on the book Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. These are illuminating dialogues recorded by Major Chadwick from 1935 to 1939. This week is from Talks 106, and let me get it up on the screen. So here he's continuing to talk with Yogananda's personal secretary, and the secretary asked how to get bliss. And Ramana says, bliss is not something to be got. On the other hand, you are always bliss. This desire is born of the sense of incompleteness. To whom is this sense of incompleteness? Inquire. In deep sleep you are blissful. Now you are not so. What has interposed between that bliss and this non-bliss? It is the ego. Seek its source and find you are bliss. There is nothing new to get. You have, on the other hand, to get rid of your ignorance that makes you think you are other than bliss. For whom is this ignorance? It is to the ego. Trace the source of the ego, then the ego is lost and bliss remains over. It is eternal. You are that here and now. This is the master key for solving all doubts. The doubts arise in the mind. The mind is born of the ego. The ego rises from the self. Search the source of the ego, and the self is revealed. That alone remains. The universe is only expanded self. It's not different from self. Then he asks, what is the best way of living? And the Maharshi says, it differs according to whether one is a yani or an ayani. A yani does not find anything different or separate from the self. All are in the self. It is wrong to imagine that there is the world, that there is a body in it, and you dwell in the body. If truth is known, the universe and what is beyond it will be found to be only in the self, the outlook. So, how to get bliss? Ramana starts by saying bliss is not something to be got. You are always bliss. Ramana explains that the desire for bliss arises from a sense of incompleteness, which is the result of the ego. Ramana advises to inquire into the source of the sense of incompleteness. He suggests that in deep sleep, one is blissful, but upon awakening, the sense of incompleteness arises due to the ego. By seeking the source of the ego, one can find out that the ego is not real, and the true nature of oneself as bliss is revealed. Ramana uses an experience we all share to illustrate this, that we all feel the bliss of deep sleep. This is when the cognitive mind is shut down, and the experience of this is uncaused bliss. This is a powerful hint about the lack of bliss, that this lack is entirely mental, in your mind, then projected onto the world. Ramana emphasizes that there is nothing new to obtain, but rather ignorance must be eliminated. Ignorance is the belief that one is separate from bliss, and this belief rises from the ego. By tracing the source of the ego and realizing its unreality, you remain in a state of eternal bliss. Maharshi then gives an approach of great power. You are that, here and now. This is the master key for solving all doubts. It's not just Mr. Right's doubts that can be resolved with this master key, but our own too. All doubts rise from the mind, which is born of the ego. By searching out the source of the ego, the true nature of yourself as the self is revealed. Ramana teaches that everything is only the self and not separate from it. Separation is only an appearance, not reality, like a wave that appears to be separate from the sea. Ramana highlights the central teaching of Advaita Vedanta, that the true nature of the self is eternal bliss. The disciple asked Ramana how to obtain bliss, and Ramana responds by stating that bliss is not something that can be obtained because it is already the natural state of being. The desire for bliss rises from a sense of incompleteness, which is the result of the ego. Maharshi encourages us to inquire into the source of this sense of incompleteness and seek the source of the ego. The idea of incompleteness is only an idea. You can realize that the ego is not real, has never been real, and that the true nature of yourself is eternal bliss. Ramana also emphasizes that there's nothing new to obtain. This is important knowledge for me, that I don't have to be something or somebody other than who I am already. So I don't need to look outside, but rather within. Nothing new to obtain. But ignorance must be eliminated. The belief that you are separate from bliss. This idea rises from the ego. By tracing the source of the ego and realizing its unreality, you can remain in bliss. This part of the dialogue concludes with Ramana stating that the key to solving all doubts is to realize that you are the self here and now. Ramana tells us the mind, born of ego, is the source of all doubts. By searching for the source of the ego, the true nature of yourself as the eternal and ever-present Brahman is revealed. The universe is the self, not separate from it. What is the best way of living is the next question. In this dialogue, Ramana explains that the answer depends on where you stand in terms of your spiritual self-knowledge. Ramana says that the best way of living differs for a yani and an ayani, one who is realized or one who has not realized the oneness of the self. For a yani, there is no difference or separation between the self and the world. The yani sees everything as a manifestation of the self and therefore lives in unity. The ayani sees a separate world filled with others and myriads of objects and, excuse me, I lost my place, myriad of objects, and that one dwells in a body within that world. If you realize the truth of non-duality, then the universe and everything beyond it will be known as existing only within the self. So the point is to actually realize it, to know it, to be it, not just to think about it, to make it your experience. So inquire. Ramana says the highest way of living is as the yani, living as the non-dual awareness of the reality of the self with no separation. This is the ultimate state of freedom and liberation. Now we'll have a video. Instead of know me, though, this video is about Bankai. Bankai is a Japanese Zen master from the 1700s. He was in a time where there were no enlightened teachers. And so he put himself through extreme practices and realized when he was 25 years old, he realized what he called the unborn, which is just there, knowing and aware in each of us without any effort on our part. I think he discovered the truth that dwells in the heart of Ramana's teaching and Advaita, but he discovered it in a time and place where there wasn't much support and language for these ideas. So Bankai expresses them in ways that are pretty original. Even Buddha talked about the unborn, though. These are his words from a sutra. There is, monks, an unborn, unbecome, unmade, unfabricated. If there were not that unborn, unbecome, unmade, unfabricated, there would not be the case that escape from the born, become, made, fabricated would be discerned. But precisely because there is an unborn, unbecome, unmade, unfabricated, escape from the born, the become, the made, the fabricated is discerned. To unpack it, if there were not the unborn, there would be no escape. Because there is an unborn, escape is found. So this is from the Buddha. A key teaching of Advaita is the true nature of the self, the Atman, is identical with the ultimate reality of the universe, Brahman. Ramana often used the term always to emphasize this eternal and unchanging nature of this reality. This always of Advaita is the same as Bankai's unborn. Ramana would say that the self is always present, even when we're not aware of it. In one famous quote, he said, "The self is always there, and it is because of the self that you're able to say, I am." If you know the self, the I vanishes, and only the self remains. Ramana used the term always to emphasize the timeless and eternal nature of the self, and to encourage his followers to seek the direct experience of this reality beyond the limitations of the mind and ego. Ramana's always and Bankai's unborn speak of the same reality. So this video is about Bankai, great teachings of Zen Master Bankai. Let me get it up.
Trying to suppress delusion is a delusion too. Delusions have no original existence, they're only things you create yourself by indulging in discrimination. Don't hate the arising of thoughts or stop the thoughts that do arise. Simply realize that our original mind, right from the start, is beyond thought, so that no matter what, you never get involved with thoughts. Illuminate the original mind, and no other understanding is necessary. An enlightened awareness is within each one of us, right at this moment. This enlightened awareness is truly unborn and marvelously illuminating, and everything is perfectly managed by it. Conclusively realize that what is unborn and illuminating is truly awakened and without effort. Rest naturally as the unborn mind. Resting in this way, you are a living Buddha. Deep down, fundamentally, we are the unborn. We never came into being and we never go out of being. All of these comings and goings are just pulses in the pattern. When you walk along naturally, you're walking in the harmony of the unborn. In criticizing, the teacher is hoping to teach. That's all. Someone asked the master, "I have heard that the masters of old reached great enlightenment through difficult and painful practice. It was through various sorts of difficult practice that the masters of our own day too attained complete realization of the Dharma. I can't quite accept the idea that someone like myself can realize the unborn Buddha mind just as I am without engaging in religious practice or attaining enlightenment. The Master said, suppose there's a group of travelers passing through tall mountain peaks. Arriving at a spot where there's no water, they become thirsty, and one of them goes off to search for water in a distant valley. After strenuously searching all over, he finds some at last and returns to give it to his companions to drink. Without making any strenuous efforts themselves, the people who drink the water can satisfy their thirst just the same as the one who did make such efforts, can't they? On the other hand, those who harbor doubts and refuse to drink the water will no way satisfy their thirst. Because I didn't meet with any clear-eyed men, I went astray and engaged in strenuous efforts till finally, I uncovered the Buddha within my own mind. So when I tell all of you that, without painful practice, you can uncover the Buddha in your own minds, it's just like the travelers drinking the water and slaking their thirst without having gone in search of the water themselves. In this way, when you make use of the Buddha mind that everyone has, just as it is, and attain peace of mind without delusory difficult practice, that's the precious true teaching, isn't it?
So now we're going to have a few minutes of inquiry. Notice that you exist, and you know that you exist without thinking about it or feeling it. You just know. Like this, you should know yourself. Now, inquire, investigate within yourself. Where does bliss come from? Does bliss come from things or from within? What kind of life will bring you happiness and bliss? A life active in the world, or a life cultivating from within? What is always there? What is unborn within you? Who am I? What is the nature of my existence? All right. And let's close with our chant. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Peace, peace, peace. All right. Uh, discussion, comments? You like Bankai?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. One thing that I know in studying some Buddhism, their word for mind and empty mind. In Advaita, we're always talking about getting rid of the mind, but with Buddhist, mind is that empty, unborn, and it's the same.
Right. One of the terms in Buddhism is Buddha mind. And,
right.
That's exactly what they're talking about is this unborn mind.
Yes.
There was one of their Buddhist question is, what was your mind? What was your face? Is the way they asked it before you were born.
Yeah.
Now that was still mostly later Buddhism, even though Buddha talked about it directly. That thread really was not picked up until the Mahayanas, who were the Chinese Buddhists and the Tibetan Buddhists.
Yeah.
And the Southern Buddhists had the idea that the emptiness, the quiet mind was the highest state of meditation. And I feel like the Mahayanas then started to ask, well, who knows that quiet mind?
Mm-hmm. Mm.
And again, for Bankai, to realize this all on his own without a teacher is something I really think is extraordinary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Any other discussion? Well, then, namaste, and we'll see you next time. And thank you for joining me. It's always good to get together this way.
Yes.
Thank
you, Richard. Namaste.
Namaste. These videos help bring Ramana Maharshi's teachings into your direct experience. Subscribe now to help you deepen your understanding and practice to know the self. Just click the subscribe button.